so that myself and the court reporter can hear you. If I ask you a question that you don't understand, please stop me, and I'll be happy to rephrase. Same goes with defense counsel when I hear your questions. Please restate your name for the record.
Benjamin Jones.
Mr. Jones, I want to take you back to the day of October 10th, 2022. Do you recall that day, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you at the location of 14138 St. Mary's in the city of Detroit, County of Wayne?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please tell me more what's at this location?
My home.
Who decided you at the home, sir?
My family, my 2 children, my fiance.
Your fiance and your 2 children. Now, on this particular day, on October 10th, 2022, who was at your home on that day, sir?
My fiance, my 2 children, my parents, and my best friend.
What is your fiance's name?
Aliyah.
And what is your mother's name?
Danielle Aldridge.
And what is your father's name?
Sean Aldridge.
Can you say it again?
Sean Aldridge.
What is your friend's name that was at the location as well?
Gregory.
On October 10th at your home, sir, did something happen at that location on that day that brings you into court today?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that, sir?
An altercation pursued between me and Kirsten Harris, and some words was exchanged. She threatened to have her boyfriend kill me, and he showed up.
You can take your time. I know this is difficult, sir.
He showed up, and within about a minute and 30 seconds, he was shooting.
These 2 people who were involved in this altercation ultimately resulting in shooting. Would you be able to recognize them again today?
Yes, ma'am.
Are either one of those or both of those people in the courtroom today, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you please tell the court where they are seated and an article of clothing that they are wearing?
First accused, the young lady with the burgundy shirt on, and the young man with the braid.
Is the woman in the burgundy shirt that you described earlier, is that Miss Harris that you described?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may the record please reflect the identification of defendant 1, Roger Nickelberry, and defendant 2, Kirsten Harris. Thank you. So just briefly, who are the defendants to you? How do you know?
We have no relation,
Okay.
but they were residing in a home next door.
Next door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So to back it up a little bit, can you briefly just tell us what led up to this initial altercation? What was it about with Ms. Harris?
Ms. Harris was under the assumption that
Objecting on to what my client is doing, the speculating was right.
If you could tell us as opposed to your assumption, tell us what she said to you.
she told me that I was in her business and calling CPS insurance officers on.
Okay. And how was she reacting based on this?
Belligerently.
Okay.
She was extremely upset, cursing, yelling, threatening my life.
How was she threatening specifically? How did she threaten?
She told me I was a whole ass nigga and I was a bitch made ass nigga and I need to stay out of her business and that her boyfriend was gonna take care of me.
Okay. And did she indicate how he would take care of her?
She said he was gonna kill me.
After these words were exchanged with defendant number 2, Harris, what, if anything, happened after that? Did it remain verbal?
Yes, that's all it was. It was just verbal.
Okay. At this time, was Ms. Harris by herself or with defendant number 1?
No, she was in a home with, another resident.
Okay. And what happened after she, indicated these things to you, sir?
Roger showed up and he asked me, do we have a problem? And I said, we do have a problem. Shooting at the house and everything is a problem. He said, shooting, you wanna see some shooting? And he told Ms. Harris to go get the gun.
Okay, so let me just understand the situation a little better. Where were you at when defendant number one, Nickelberry, indicated to you what you just stated? About
In my driveway,
you're in the driveway. Where was he?
on the sidewalk.
Okay. And when he indicated to defendant number two, Harris, to go get his guns, what, if anything, did you observe Ms. Harris do?
She handed the guns out of the door.
She handed him guns?
Yes,
Did you see what kind of guns she handed him, sir?
pink 9mm and a revolver.
What did defendant number one, Nickelberry's, do after, defendant two handed him the guns?
He pointed one gun at me and one gun at my father and told me if we was to move, he was gonna shoot us together.
Sir, you mentioned he pointed one gun at you and one at your father. Where was your father?
Standing on my porch.
On your porch? Was your father alone?
No, my family was in the doorway.
Which family members were in the doorway?
My fiance was in the doorway, my mother was in the doorway.
Okay.
My fiance was holding one of my children, and my friend Gregory was standing on the porch next to my father.
After the defendant, let me just clarify. Where did he point the guns at?
He pointed one to me, one at me, and one at my father.
Okay, and your father's on the porch.
Yes,
So, what did you do when he indicated that? When he threatened to kill you and your father?
I was shocked. I was
Okay,
stuck.
what did you do anything?
I started making my way towards the house because I was afraid for my life.
Okay, so you start to retreat back to your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was that the end of it, sir?
No, ma'am.
What happened then?
Halfway, when I got halfway to the house, up the driveway, he began shooting. He began shooting in my
When you say
direction.
he, who began shooting?
Roger Nickelberry.
Began shooting, okay. And did you see him shooting?
Absolutely.
Okay. And, which direction was he shooting towards when you observed him shooting?
He began shooting at me, and began shooting at my father, and friend on the porch, into the side of the home where my family was sending his messages.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat that last answer?
Shooting the side of the home into where the vestibule
Now
is.
playing Apple Music, fun on Apple Music.
And,
You can always ask me to switch
and you
to
said
another
who was
app.
that?
Your choices will help you learn.
And I apologize.
Electronic nowadays. And everyone's just such a freak. So let's go with some really different again and build it.
Mr. Jones, I'm sorry, since you repeated that answer, I think you repeated that a little differently, so I just want to clarify. Who was in that vestibule area that he was also shooting at?
My fiance and my mother.
So I have to ask, what was going on through your mind? What were you thinking as he was shooting at you and your family?
He's gonna kill us. He's gonna kill us, or he's gonna kill somebody.
So at this
I was
time,
afraid for my life.
what if anything did you do based on that fear and what was going on?
I got into the home. I observed my father and friend laying on the porch. I didn't know if they were dead because he was still shooting at the time. And then They told me to stay in the house.
Yes, Your Honor, what they told him, that we hearsay.
Can you, is that what you're saying? If you could try to focus on your observations and.
I observed my father and friend laying on the porch. I was standing in the vestibule.
Where were, did you make any observations, as to your mother and fiance?
They retreated further back into the home.
And, they were retreating back into the home?
Yes.
What was the atmosphere?
My mother was screaming, my kids were screaming, my fiance was screaming. My mother was begging me to get in the house. I was trying to get to my stepfather and my friend on the porch lying down.
Were the gunshots still going off while all this was
Absolutely.
transpiring, while all the screaming and everything? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And do you recall, I know that this is, it's a lot going on at one time, but do you recall roughly how many shots were fired by chance?
At least 12 to 15.
So, sir, let me ask you, at some point, do the gunshots stop?
Yes, they stopped.
Okay. What, if anything, do you do or do you observe your family members doing once the gunshots stop?
My stepfather and friend, they call into the house. My mother is crawling on the floor. My kids are screaming. My fiance is crying. They're trying to find the phone to call 911. And I'm trying to check to see if everybody is okay. And about maybe a minute and 30 seconds later, shots are being fired into my home again.
So after the pause,
Yes, I'm
gunshots
standing,
start
I'm
again?
standing, I'm standing crouching in the dining room. I can see out the front window. And I see the truck that Roger was driving. He drove off, going past my home, shooting to my home. This is when I get down and everybody's screaming again.
sir, after the second round of shots, do you recall how many times they shot the second time?
Two or three times.
Was anyone able to call the police after the shooting stopped?
My mother called twice.
Okay. Did the police eventually arrive?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you inform the officers of what had transpired?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you identify to the officers the people that were involved in the shooting?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell the officers who provided the defendant, number one, with the weapon that he shot into your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you give him detailed information as to how many shots and everything you have told us today?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Benjamin, if I may, was anyone injured in that day, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us how you were injured?
My children, I don't think my children will ever be the same. They both suffer from seizures. And right afterwards, like every time a gunshot would go off in the distance or a loud noise would happen, or I would come in the house and the door was slammed. My kids are running and screaming. To this day, they're running and screaming. Myself, I'm extra cautious when I'm going to either of my homes because I feel like somebody is still trying to kill me. My
Your
fiance,
Honor, I'm going to object to the non-responsive question posed was he injured. Now he's given a narrative in regards to the mental health issue.
Mental health is also a way that someone can be injured, Your Honor. Everybody knows that.
But you asked if he was injured, not.
I said, was anyone injured? That's what I said. He's giving us the detailed account of everyone who was there and their, what he deems to be their injuries, what he's observed as their injuries. He can't just say what the injuries are. He has to give us out his observations.
Your Honor.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, Your Honor, really.
So, she did ask, were there any injuries, and there are more than just physical injuries when it comes to trauma. So I don't know about to speak on if he has knowledge of it, with injuries, his children, he or anyone else in the house, if he has knowledge. But also, it should be a post question.
Yes. Yes, mental injury, sustained injury, falling on the floor with my mom, holding my mom to my shoulder that's still bothering me.
And your mother and father? And your fiance, I know you mentioned all of
Suffers
that.
from anxiety attacks. They suffer from
And you've
anxiety.
seen these observations?
Absolutely.
Sir, once the police arrived, you made a police report. Have you encountered either one of the defendants, had any other altercations with them since that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And did any of it involve any violence in this case?
My house was shot up.
Again, after this day?
Yes, Your Honor. Relevant?
Yeah. And it should be connected between the interaction between the defendant and his husband.
Your Honor, this is going to go towards the fact that the people do intend to revisit bonds after this hearing. It appears that this is, as he stated, so far, once, twice, this is an ongoing thing, that it was not a one-time incident. That's all that people were trying to show, that this is still continuing even after that particular day.
Okay, so if there's no connection as to who shot up the house the second time, then it's not relevant.
I'm happy to ask that. I apologize.
The second time,
You have to wait for a question.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, you indicated your home was shot up again after this incident.
yes, ma'am.
Did you observe who actually shot at your home?
No, ma'am.
And oh my God. No further questions at this time. Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask you some questions, if at any time you don't understand a question I ask you, you please stop me and ask me to rephrase the question.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you answer a question, I'm assuming that that's the answer that you intended to give. You
Yes, ma'am.
understand that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's see, you have lived next door to my client, how long? Ms. Harris,
For 5 months.
okay. Do you know what month were you already living there or was she already living there?
I was already living there.
Okay, so what month do you say Ms. Harris came to live next door?
March of
Um,
2022.
do you know who lived in that home
Before?
when Ms. Harris
Oh,
came?
no, she didn't come in there March of 2024. She came in August of 2022. I mean,
So does that change your answer regarding how long my client lived next door to you?
she lived next door to me for 2 months.
Okay, you sure? Now, you want to stick with that answer?
Yes, ma'am. 2
Okay.
months.
So, do you know who else resided at that particular property?
Yes, ma'am.
Who lived there, to your knowledge?
First it was Antoine McClendon, and then later came Roger McNeary, person here.
Do you know Mr. McClendon personally?
No, ma'am.
You have conversations with Mr. McClendon?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, at that particular address, next door to yours?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how many?
Probably about 3.
Okay, what about Mr. Nickelberry? You said you know him before?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know him prior to him coming to live at this particular property?
Yes, ma'am.
How long did you know him before?
When I first moved in my house,
And that was when, sir?
2016.
Okay, so you know Mr. Nickelberry from 2016?
I have not known him. I've known of him.
Okay, well, my question is, how long have you known him?
I don't know him. I know of him.
Okay, so you're not friends with him,
No,
correct?
ma'am.
You don't associate with him, correct?
No, ma'am.
So, anybody, are you friends or associates of anyone else who claim residing at that property?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, you said after this incident took place, the police came, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And where you had left the property before the police arrived, had you?
Sure.
You hadn't left the property before the police arrived, had you?
No.
Okay, so between the incident and the police arriving, you stayed there at your home, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you certainly didn't go out and pick up any casings from the street, driveway, porch, or anything like that, did you?
No, ma'am.
Did you see the police collect casings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You say, according to you, there were 12 to 15 shots, is that right?
Hold on.
You know what you told the prosecutor when she asked you how many shots were fired, and your answer was,
When the police came, I was outside.
okay, let me rephrase, let me repeat the question. Did you not testify that when the prosecutor asked you how many shots were fired, didn't you testify that there were at least 12 to 15 shots fired?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when the police came, you had a chance to talk to them, right?
I was outside.
Okay, and you didn't know any of these particular officers prior to them coming to the street regarding this particular incident, is that right?
No, ma'am.
And you told the police that you had a verbal argument with Ms. Harris, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when the prosecutor said that earlier asked you about an altercation, then we agreed there was no physical altercation, was there?
There was no physical altercation.
Okay, you didn't put your hands on her, right?
No, ma'am.
And she never put her hands on you, right?
No, ma'am.
So there was only a verbal argument, is that right?
Absolutely.
And I think today you tell us that she told you that you were a bitch ass nigga, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And a whole ass nigga, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's not the first time you've ever been called those words, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay, because you're a grown man, right? Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, you weren't particularly offended because somebody called you out your name.
You said, was I offended?
Yes,
Absolutely.
no more offended than you've been by anybody else who said that to you, though, right? Right?
Right.
Okay, so now let me see, now, this whole, can we agree that it's a neighborly dispute? This dispute comes out of the fact that you believe my client is squatting, is that right?
No, ma'am.
Isn't that what you told the police?
No, ma'am.
Is your name Benjamin?
Can you repeat the question again?
The last question, is your name Benjamin?
The question before that.
Okay, did you tell the police that they were squatting?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. My question was, did you tell the police that you believe that my client was squatting?
Is that on the paper?
I'm asking you a question, sir. If you don't know the answer, you can tell me you don't know.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. To your knowledge is not answering the question I'm asking you. Let me ask you the question again. Did you tell the police that you believe my client was squatting at this particular property next door to yours?
Yes.
And you don't know if they were squatting there or not, correct?
I'm certain.
I'm sorry?
I'm certain that they are.
Okay.
I'm certain that there was.
Were you a part of a lease agreement with my client?
No, I know the owner of the home.
Were you a part of a lease agreement with my client?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you don't know what the lease arrangements were because you weren't a part of it, is that right?
No, I spoke with the owner.
Sir, do you know
Your
about a lease?
objections, can I get relevance? This is a matter of the lease agreement.
But Judge, didn't she ask how this whole incident arose? And I'm simply asking him based on the information that he allegedly gave the police. I'm just going into that.
I'll allow it.
Thank you,
The
Judge.
answer that you, the owner of the house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who's the owner of the house, sir?
Josh Goldberg.
Josh Bogard?
Josh Goldberg.
Goldberg. You know Mr. Goldberg personally?
No,
How do you know Mr. Goldberg?
Again, Your Honor, relevance,
He is saying he obviously, or he's trying to imply that he somehow has personal knowledge about the lease of this property because he says that he knows the owner. So we asked him how he knows the owner.
Your Honor, that's, his answer is based on her line of questioning, and I'd like to put on the record that I object to her line of questions. I don't see the relevance, what that has to do with what actually transpired that day and what was said and done afterwards.
Well, Your Honor, the relevance is it goes to the fact that he tells the police more than one time that he believes that my client is spotty. That's how this entire disagreement began. I'm simply just trying to flesh out why he would give the police that information. Now, he's saying he's giving that information because he says he knows the owner.
Okay, and I don't. Where we going, where you going?
I just want to know how he knows the owner, because I'm certainly gonna try to find his man, Mr. Goldberg.
Okay, can you answer that question, Mr. Jones?
The property, not manager, but real estate agent, she gave the information to the neighbors to keep an eye on the house.
Okay, well, now you're gonna tell me what somebody else did. So now we're not talking about something you got to recognize.
Your Honor, objection. She asked and he answered how she knew him, so he answered how he knew through other people. So exactly, now he has to, now she's bringing in hearsay, making him do the hearsay.
No.
So the question is, how do you know the answer through a property manager?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know him personally?
I don't know him personally.
Okay, all right, anything based off of his answer?
No, that's never fair.
Okay.
Okay, so then there's also a portion of this, discussion that you're having with my client is, you tell the police she thought that you called CPS on them. Is that right?
Yes.
And not minding your own business. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, my client, about what time was this initial discussion you had with my client?
Approximately 3:00 in the afternoon.
Okay, and where did it take place, sir?
When I came home, I was on my property, she was on her property.
So,
Well, she was next door.
okay, at her house.
She was at the property next door.
Okay, so the property that she was residing in is that's where she was, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
She wasn't on your property, correct? So are you guys having this discussion back and forth from one port to the other port?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and at the time, how long did this discussion take place about?
Roughly about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, so in this 10 to 15 minutes, other than the fact that you say, you believe my client thought you called CPS on them, and that you should be minding your own business, was there anything else that was, a part of the argument itself?
Other than her threatening my life and telling me what her boyfriend was gonna do.
Okay, and all that took 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, are you guessing, sir, or do you really think it was 15 minutes of this argument?
About 15 minutes.
Okay, and you said you were on your property, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And nobody made you stay out and continue to have a conversation with my client, right?
No, ma'am.
Because you could have just went in their house, right? Isn't that right, sir?
You said what?
You could have gone in your house and disengaged from a conversation with my client, is that correct?
We disengaged.
Okay, after 15 minutes though, is that right?
The conversation in itself wasn't 15 minutes. It
Okay.
was very short.
Okay, well, I want to know how long the conversation was itself.
Between me and Ms. Harris.
Yes, ma'am, yes, sir.
She said what she had to say when she went in the house.
Okay, so the conversation between you and her wasn't 15 minutes then, is that right?
She was yelling for about 15 minutes.
Okay, and you stayed outside while she's yelling?
Yes, ma'am.
So you chose to stay out and have some conversation with my client then, back and forth, is that right?
Did I choose to stay outside?
Yes, sir.
I was outside.
Okay, but if you didn't want to hear her mouth, you could have gone in the house, isn't that right?
She requested to speak with me.
Okay, but she requested to speak with you, told you what she had to tell you, and then that was the end of that. Is that right?
No, ma'am.
Okay, she requested to speak with you. She come knock on your door?
No, she asked someone,
Okay, who did she ask to speak with you?
my fiance.
Okay, how did that come to be that work? Do you know how that conversation between her and your fiance came to be?
Objection, Your Honor. She is asking him to provide us with hearsay on what Beyonce wants.
No, I didn't. I asked him, how, does he know how the conversation between my client and the fiance came to be? That's what was said.
Just answer yes or no.
Say what?
Just answer that question.
Can you repeat the question, ma'am?
Do you know how the conversation between my client and your fiance came to be?
No.
Okay, to your knowledge, my client didn't come to your house and ask to speak to your fiance, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's correct. She
That's
did not
correct.
do that.
She didn't.
Okay, and then whatever the conversation was allegedly between my client and your fiance, that caused you to come out the house to speak with my client, is that right?
I wasn't in the home.
Okay, where were you?
I was at work.
Okay, so you just came home from work and had some discussion with your fiance, right? Is that right?
Yes.
And then based on whatever the conversation was that you had with your fiance, you then somehow had a conversation with my client, is that
No,
right?
as soon as I got out of the truck, Miss Kirsten began cursing and yelling at me.
Okay, and she cursed and yelled at you for, you said, a couple of 10, 15 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're sure it was 10 to 15 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you stood out there this 10 to 15 minutes to engage in this cursing match, is that right?
I just listened.
Okay, you never said a word back, is that right?
I said a few words.
What did you say?
What is our problem?
Okay, and did you get a reply?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you would have just gone on in your house, is that right?
I was afraid that things were gonna escalate.
Sir, listen to the question. After this conversation,
Based on,
Sir.
based,
I gotta ask you the question. After this conversation that you had with my client, according to you last about 10 or 15 minutes. You then went up into your house. Is that right?
no, ma'am.
What did you do?
At the 15-minute mark, Mr. Harris showed, Mr. Nickelberry showed up.
Okay, Mr. Nickelberry showed up. And then you had a conversation with Mr. Nickelberry, is that right?
Probably about a minute and 40 seconds.
Okay. You seem to be very precise on this minutes and seconds. Were you looking at your clock, sir?
No,
Okay, so you're estimating, is that right?
yes,
Okay, and at some point you had some kind of conversation with Mr. Nickelberry, is that right?
yes, ma'am.
Now, my client is no longer present while you're having this conversation, is that right?
She's in the doorway.
Okay, she's not outside, correct?
No, ma'am.
Not, no threat to you at this point at all, correct?
Depends.
Well, did she start shooting at you or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Throwing anything at you?
She handed him some guns.
Sir, at the time that she's in the door, did she do anything to you?
She handed Robert Nickelberry some guns.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Now, you were where at, sir?
On my property.
On your porch?
No, in my driveway.
And your driveway between my client's house and your client's house?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it it's the same side of the street, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, what did my client have on this day?
I'm not particularly sure.
Okay, well, but you had been looking at her some 10 to 15 minutes, correct? Yes?
I wasn't looking directly at her.
Okay, so you have no idea what she had on, but at some point she left the conversation and went in her house, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when she went in her house, did she have to open the door?
Yes, she has.
When she opened the door, did she go inside the house?
Can you repeat the
When
question?
she opened the door, did she go inside the house?
Yes.
And when she went inside the house, you weren't in a position to see where she went or what she did inside the house, is that right?
Yes, I was.
Tell me how you could see from your driveway inside of her house, but if she went in the house and closed the door.
She didn't close the door.
Is there 2 doors?
Yes,
The first door would be like the screen door.
yes,
She went in the house and closed the screen door behind her.
The screen door just automatically closed.
Okay, so that means she's now at least past the first door, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then did you see where she went after that in her
Yes.
house?
Yes,
Where
ma'am.
did she go?
She was still in the doorway.
Okay, and when she's still in the doorway, describe the door, is it all glass?
No, it's a security door, black security door with screen.
And glass?
Yeah,
Okay, where's the glass at the top?
no, it's screen at the top,
Okay, so, and it has bars on the bottom?
bars on top and the bottom.
Okay, and so, where's Mr. Mr. Nickelberry when she goes in the house?
He's on the sidewalk talking to me.
Okay, so, isn't your attention focused on Mr. Nickelberry, since Mr. Nickelberry would be the person that you're having this conversation?
At one point, I looked over at the porch.
Okay, when you looked over at the porch, what'd you see?
I saw her standing in the doorway.
Okay, just doing nothing, is that right?
She was standing in the doorway.
Okay, she's not saying anything then at that point, right?
No,
And then, so you had this, how long was this conversation you had with Mr. Nickelberry?
Mr. Nickelberry asked me, do we have a problem? I said, yes, we have a problem. The problem is the shooting that's carrying on at this house. It's a safety hazard for my family.
Okay,
And he said, you want to see some shooting? Baby, go get my gun.
okay. So let me ask you about that. You're asking Mr. Nickelberry about some shooting, right?
No, ma'am, I'm not asking him anything.
No, but you just told the court, you told Mr. Nickelberry that you have there's a problem because of some shooting. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that reported to the police, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have an incident number for that report?
I don't have an incident report.
What day was it reported?
Sometime in August.
August of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
So did you ever get a police report number?
Yes, ma'am.
Where'd you go make the report at?
At what's that, 8th precinct on Nichols and over here by Myers.
Okay, and this report that you made, are you accusing Mr. Nickelberry or Ms. Harris of shooting?
I saw the shooter,
Okay, who was that, sir?
Mr. Nickelberry.
Okay, and you reported that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in August, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
now we're in October, and was there any other incident?
A shooting?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so according to your testimony, there's been one alleged shooting incident that took place in August of 22, and now we're down in October.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so after this particular discussion that you have with Mr. Nickelberry, what does Mr. Nickelberry do?
Mr. Nickelberry took off the shirt.
Okay,
When he said we have a problem, he took off the shirt and said, we have a problem.
okay,
I said, yeah, we have a problem. The problem is the shooting stuff carrying on. He said, you want to see some shooting? Baby, go get my gun. And when
Okay.
he said that, Ms. Harrison handed him some guns. She stuck the guns out the door. He went up on the porch and got the gun.
okay, so you see her stick guns out the door, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
Now, was there anybody else near you at that particular time?
Just give me a clear definition
Was
of what's
anybody
near.
else near you within your arm's reach,
No,
standing next to you,
no,
on the porch
yes,
at your house?
yes.
Who was on your porch at the house at the time you claimed my client, handing Mr. Nickelberry guns out the door?
My father and my friend Gregory.
Okay, let me ask you about your father. Your father was not initially there when you're having this conversation with Ms. Harris, right?
He was there.
Did
When
you,
when I pulled up, he was there.
okay, did you call your father to come to your house?
Yes,
And you called your father and your mother came with him, is that right?
yes,
And when you called your father and your mother, to come, your father came armed, is that right?
he's a CPO carrier. He's a
So the
CPO
question, so
holder.
the answer is yes, he came armed, is that correct?
Yes,
And he carries his firearm on his person, is that right?
yes, ma'am.
And you could see it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on your father was already at the house when you're having this conversation with Mr. Nickelberry?
Yes,
Okay, and your father was also engaged in this conversation, is that right?
no, ma'am.
Your father never said a word.
He
During the,
told-
wait a minute, between the time, during the time that you're talking to Mr. Nickelberry, your father never said a word.
He said one word, he said a sentence to him.
Okay, anybody else say anything to Mr. Nickelberry?
Nobody,
Okay, what about your friend?
nobody said nothing else. Nobody else said nothing to him.
Okay, now, the police asked you about, when Mr. Nickelberry arrived, you remember that?
Yes,
And did you tell the police it began to escalate the confrontation with, you?
You said what?
Did you tell the police that this situation began to escalate?
No, ma'am.
Did you tell the police that you told Mr. Nickelberry that you had a problem with him squatting at
No.
14128
No,
St.
ma'am.
Mary's?
No, ma'am.
You didn't tell the police that?
No, ma'am.
Police don't know you though, right?
No, ma'am.
You have any reason to believe the police just make up something that and attribute it to you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So after this conversation takes place, you're in your driveway, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a reason, sir, you don't, would you agree that you're kind of upset about what's being said to you?
Say, am I upset?
Yes, sir.
Annoyed, but not upset. But
Okay.
at the point when,
That's the answer to my question. So you're annoyed.
yeah,
Okay. And then at the point that you say my client is now supposedly handing guns out the door, and you said you're in the driveway, is that right?
yes, ma'am.
And you don't take off running to the house.
No, ma'am.
Okay. You just stand there and continue to talk.
I didn't say a word.
Okay. Did you stand there, sir?
I start inching my way towards the door.
Okay, when you're inching your way to the door, you're walking across the lawn, your lawn, to go to the front door of your home?
Not until I was kind of coached into the house.
Okay, so then you didn't really want to go in the house, right?
I was scared for my life.
Okay,
'Cause
sir.
he told me if I moved, he was gonna kill me.
Okay, but you moved though, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you were able to go to the front door, is that right?
He started shooting by the time I got to my car, it was 2 cars in the driveway. When I got
Oh, wait a minute, you didn't tell me about that before. So between your house and their property where they were living, there are 2 vehicles in the driveway, is that right?
yes,
And you're talking to my client over these vehicles?
I'm behind the vehicle.
So you're standing behind the vehicle. And so you don't have to cross past these vehicles though to get to your front door then, right?
Yes,
Okay, you just walk behind the vehicle, go across your lawn and go to your front door, is that right?
yes,
And your dad at this time who was a CPO holder, he's standing on the porch, correct?
yes, ma'am.
He never pulls his firearm out and does anything, right?
Not one time.
While my client allegedly gives Mr. Nickelberry 2 guns, your father, who's the CPL holder, does nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, and your father just decided that he should just lay down on the porch in the open, is that right?
When he started shooting, they both got on the ground.
Okay, on the front porch, right?
Yes,
And this took place in a matter of seconds, is that right?
yes,
And then everybody went in the house, is that right?
yes.
And then you didn't come back out the
Not
house.
everybody can put in the house.
Well, I'm from your family.
Not everybody.
Well, your mother wasn't out there on the porch, right?
No,
Just your father and your friend, right?
yes,
Your fiance wasn't out there on the porch, correct?
no,
And your children weren't out there on the porch.
no, ma'am.
So the only people who are outside are the 3 men, you, your dad, and your friend. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then after the shooting allegedly it takes place, then everybody goes in the house. Is that right?
Yes,
And then you said that you hear more shots, and this is coming from the side of the property. Is that correct?
no, ma'am.
Did you just tell us that it was the side where the vestibule is?
No, that was at the beginning, when he first started shooting.
Okay, and that's your house. The house is brick, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did no shots came in through the side of the property? Is that right?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, and so after the police come, but no, before the police come, you tell the police my client leaves, is that right?
You said what?
You tell the police my client left, is that right?
Which client?
My client, Miss Harris, right here. You told the police that she left,
She left.
okay? When did she leave, sir?
She left, between the first shooting and the second shooting.
Okay, and what time is that?
What time?
Yes, sir.
Exact time or approximate time?
Okay, but the best that you can give me.
This was, probably about between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, and when she left, how did she leave?
She left by car.
What kind of car did she leave?
She left in the black, I wanna say Impala.
Okay, because you know that's the vehicle that she drives?
I saw her.
Okay. But you see her in that vehicle before too, right?
Yes,
Okay. How did Mr. Nickelberry arrive?
Ms. Newberry arrived in the U-Haul.
Okay, you remember telling the police, my client left in the car with Mr. Nickelberry?
I did not tell them that.
Okay, so on this particular day, they leave and then you don't see my client again, is that correct?
Which one?
Miss Harris,
No,
you haven't seen her since that day, have you?
no ma'am,
Okay, haven't had any other words with her at all, correct?
no ma'am.
And Miss Harris never shot at you at all, correct?
She had a gun.
Did Miss Harris shoot at you, sir?
She said she was gonna get somebody to kill me and
Sir,
handed him some guns.
Let me repeat the question. If you don't understand the question, I asked you, just tell me, I gotta rephrase.
No,
Thank you, no further questions.
Your Honor, did you want her to start, or if I have a few questions, because I know this line of question was focused on Ms. Harris, or shall I wait till the defense?
I would prefer if you redirect on, wait, no, actually,
Right.
how do you all want to do it? If there's a preference.
It doesn't matter, Your Honor, my questions are my questions.
Okay. Ms. Harris?
If you wouldn't mind, I just want to focus on defense counsel's defendant on this line, and then I'm happy if you wouldn't mind, and after she asks for defendant one, then I would, if I do have any further questions, then I would ask at that time.
So you mean redirect for?
Would you mind if
defendant?
Well, yeah, would you
Yes.
mind?
So essentially two redirects. Well,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
the questions may be completely different, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Thank you. I just, I want to focus on a couple of questions specifically to defendant number two and the cross that just occurred, okay? When you state that you saw defendant two Harris in the doorway, I know that defense started touching on this a little bit, but when you say in the doorway, what does that mean? You know, is she 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Do you see what I'm trying to ask? If you could describe where her body was relative to the doorway.
visible. She was visibly in the doorway.
Okay. Did you observe her observing the back and forth between you and defendant number one?
Yes,
Okay. You
But
stated
that's
to-
what she saw. I don't know if you can say what she saw.
Yeah.
Maybe speculation, who's driving?
Did you observe, what if anything, did you observe defendant Harris doing while you and,
she had the door cracked as he was talking to me.
so, you indicated that the defendant one said to defendant two, baby, go get my guns. Was the door open?
The door was open at that time.
Okay.
It was already cracked.
Did you observe did the defendant say no to him? Was there any kind of
Not at all.
hesitation?
No, she had the guns out the door before he even got on the porch.
And you were able to see these weapons that she had and that she handed him?
Absolutely.
Did you see the defendant have to load either one of these weapons?
No, ma'am.
So, to go back a little further about the time frame that defense was asking you about your verbal engagement, I'll use that word instead of altercation, but with Ms. Harris, at any time while you were having this back and forth or over the 10-15 minutes, however long it was, did you observe defendant Harris at any time to be doing anything else, using the phone, anything of this nature?
Yes.
Okay, so in the
Yeah,
span of 10 to
the scope
15
across.
minutes.
First of all, I didn't ask about my client using the phone. It's another line of question. Stating the scope of cross-examination.
If I may, I will continue. She opened up the line as what was going on in this whole 10 to 15 minutes. So it piqued my curiosity too.
If you could rephrase it to
Yes.
asking him what he observed based off of Attorney Wood's side, but she did not respond.
My apologies. Mr. Jones, could you please tell us, aside from her saying words to you, threatening, did you observe her doing anything else during this time?
I could see her, through the door on the phone. I don't know who she was on the phone with. but she was on the phone.
Was this before or after she said that she was going to get defendant one to kill you?
After.
After. So after she indicated that she's gonna get defendant kill you, you observed her on the telephone.
Yes.
How long after she was on the telephone did defendant two arrive? Or excuse me, defendant one, Mr. Nickelberry.
Shortly after.
When Mr. Nickelberry got out of his car, did he? What was his reaction? Was he surprised to see you there?
No, I don't know.
Did he ask her any questions prior to engaging with you?
No, ma'am.
So suffice it to say, he appeared to be not surprised at all to see you and his, or defendant two at this location when he arrived. Okay. To clarify, earlier, when in cross-exam, she was, defense was asking you who, let me back up, I apologize. Just one other thing. When defendant number two, Ms. Harris, handed the guns to defendant one, did you observe her do anything else when he started shooting? Did she state anything? Did she attempt to stop him?
No.
During in that line of questioning, your father came up. You indicated your father's a CPL holder?
Yes, ma'am.
And did your father often come to your home?
Yes.
Okay. So, your father and mother, they were there that day. Did you call them over there?
Yeah.
Did you call them for a certain purpose?
To get my family out of the house, if I didn't get there in time.
Okay. Does your father, whenever he comes and visits, aside from this, altercation, does he, come with, carrying his weapon?
Carries weapon everywhere.
Okay. Just curious, does he pull it out in front of your children since your children are there?
No.
Okay. So was your children there that, you indicated, was your children there when the shooting started?
Yes.
And at any time, did your father pull that gun out?
No, ma'am.
And thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Attorney Franklin, before you begin, start to get another legal. But, Mr. Jones, I just have one question. You said stepfather. Is this you're referring to the same person as father and stepfather?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an additional person.
Or I think the problem was I could probably. No, I don't know how the process can, defense counsel, I'm not trying to.
Well, it depends on how she votes. It's up to you.
I know. Yeah, my fault. Too.
Okay, whenever you're ready, try to pray.
Alright. Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. Now, there are already, few of my questions that I have for you have already kind of been answered, and more so clarifying, in regards to those questions. So, now you indicate that, we call it redirect. You called your father over, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know approximately how long your father had been at your home before you arrived?
Probably about, we arrived approximately at the same time.
Okay. And when you got home, that's when, excuse me. So you arrived at approximately the same time, and you indicated on direct that your argument with Ms. Harris essentially began as soon as you got out of your, car. Is that correct?
Yes,
Now, that verbal argument, was your father part of that argument?
no, ma'am.
Where was your father?
Nobody was involved with me.
Sir, my question is, where was your father?
He was on the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk in front of your house or on the sidewalk in front of the driveway?
From,
And so while you're arguing with Ms. Harris, is your father still on the sidewalk throughout your argument?
No,
Approximately, when did he separate or when did he leave the sidewalk?
it was almost like when he walked up, he disregarded her, kind of like observed what was going on, he went to the house.
And so you also have the option of disregarding her and going in the house, correct?
He came back out.
Sir, my question is, you had the option of disregarding her and going in the house, correct?
I honestly want to know what was her problem.
Again, my question is, not what you chose to do, but you had the option of disregarding her and going in the house, correct?
Yes,
Right, she wasn't just gonna follow you into your door, correct?
Your Honor, argumentative, he answered the question. We don't know what
I'll
she was
retract
gonna
it, Your
do.
Honor. Okay, so throughout this conversation, you said your father went in the house and he came back out, is that correct?
yes, ma'am.
When did he come out? Well, let me clarify that. Have you already separated from your verbal discourse with Ms. Harris, or were you still in the midst of it? Now, you testified that you called your father over to help, get you and your family out of the house,
Get my family out the house.
and why is that?
She was belligerent, like I could hear her over the phone, when I got the phone call about her, like she was upset. You know, the Harris was upset.
But, look, you can't tell me what someone else is.
No, I can
feeling.
hear Miss Harris.
Again, you don't know how she feels. Now, you called your father to come over, correct?
Yeah,
And who were you on the phone with?
who was I on the phone with
Yes,
when I called him?
when you said that you could hear someone being belligerent.
My fiance.
Okay. And so, don't tell me what you said, but you were in a conversation with your fiance, and that's why you called your father, correct? As a result of your understanding of that conversation, right?
No, that's not why I called.
So, then why would you have needed to get your family out of the house?
Because I was called by Antoine McClendon,
Who was that?
another resident that stayed there with me.
Okay, and when did he call you?
He called me, said that we had to have some words.
Can't tell me what someone else said, but he called
Yeah.
you. And when did he call you?
So what did he call me?
When?
Shortly after my fiance called. I got a missed call from him.
Was Mr. McClendon outside during this verbal discourse with Ms. Harris?
He was in a doorway.
What door? Of Ms. Harris's home?
Yeah.
With all of this arguing going on, were there any other neighbors outside?
Yes.
Was it a lot of neighbors, just one or two?
It was my next door neighbor's children. The neighbor next to them children. And, my good friend, who's also my neighbor.
That Gregory?
Yeah.
And what is Gregory's last name?
I'm not sure.
This is your best friend though,
It's a good friend of mine.
and you don't know? And you indicate he lives next door to you?
No, he was, 3 houses away.
Now, when your father comes back outside and you're still arguing with Ms. Harris, is that when you see all the other neighbors outside?
No, I just see the children outside. At this point,
Thank you, you just see the children outside. Now, what would you say is the time you don't get to speak until I ask you a question?
but you asked me, did I see neighbors outside?
Sir, and you answer that question, I moved on.
Did
Now-
did you say yes or no? To the question about whether you saw neighbors outside?
Yes.
Yeah, he gave me the answer,
I just wanted to make sure.
There was also 2 older men, gentlemen right across the street.
thank you. Now, in the time frame that you separated from Ms. Harris and you indicate Mr. Nickelberry showed up, what is that time?
You said what? Repeat the
And the
question?
time frame that the argument ended with Ms. Harris and Mr. Nickelberry showed up, but what is that time?
Shortly,
Is shortly 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
probably about 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
And were you standing outside this entire time?
Me?
Yes, you.
Yes.
What were you doing?
Waiting to see what our problem was.
So to be clear, you had your life threatened argument, someone's going to come shoot you, told you why they were angry, and you still stood outside for an additional 5 minutes to see what the problem was?
Yes.
Okay. Now, but you indicate that your father came over to help get your family out, so why didn't you leave in that 5 minutes?
Because I believe that I could potentially reason with Roger over Ms. Harris.
But at this point, you can't say for certain that Mr. Nickelberry is coming, correct?
No, I'm certain because he
No.
lived there as well.
But sir, you weren't on the other end of the phone, correct?
No,
You were not part of the phone conversation, correct?
correct.
So you don't know who she was technically talking to,
She
correct?
told me she was gonna call me.
Sir, it doesn't matter what she told you. I'm telling you that if someone is on the phone, unless you're part of the conversation, you don't know who it is, correct?
She told me she was calling.
Sir,
You're right, correct.
thank you. So, that being said, you don't know whether or not he's actually coming. And you've alleged that your life has been threatened, and you need basically get out of Dodge, you still stayed around for 5 more additional minutes?
Yeah.
And so when Mr. Nickelberry arrived in this time frame, did you and your father speak with Mr. Nickelberry?
No, well, I didn't let him speak with him.
So you control what your father does?
No,
So in this time frame after Mr. Nickelberry arrives, at no time did your father or you speak with Mr. Nickelberry?
we did.
You both did.
Yeah, my father told him,
You can't tell me what someone else said. So now let's take this back. Your father did join in that conversation.
he said a sentence to me.
Thank you. And at this point, again, as you've already said, your father maintains his firearm on him at all times, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, because you believe that you can reason with Mr. Nickelberry, there's no reason to bring a gun to a conversation, right?
Objection, Your Honor. I'm confused. He doesn't have a gun, so is she asking him to speak for what his father would be bringing a gun? I'm confused with the question.
Well, he and his father both spoke to Mr. Nickelberry, they participated in the conversation as testified back and forth. There's no testimony or argument presented that Mr. Nickelberry actually had a firearm on him. He's already testified that he believed that he could rationale with Mr. Nickelberry. So at this point, you have an armed individual who has a display approaching someone else who was unsure of the situation.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't recall anything, bringing facts in the testimony now. Nobody said anybody approached him. So Mr. Jones stated he didn't have a weapon at any time on testimony. So his father questioned as to whether he was going to bring one or not. He didn't bring one, Mr. Jones.
Right, but his father did, and
His father, from what I understand, is a CPO holder and had on the person.
Mhm. And so my question is, if they have both approached, or however, the argument, the conversation began, the person in that conversation that was armed was not Mr. Nickelberry, it was the father.
Is there a question?
So,
Well,
it's clear, based on testimony, that Mr. Nickelberry, from Mr. Jones, that Mr. Nickelberry retrieved the guns from Ms. Harris at some point. And that Mr. Jones' father, from the point that he arrived, and we don't know until the incident was over, had a gun on his waist as a CPO holder. So Mr. Jones' father at all times had a gun on his hip, on his holster, I'm not sure of the holster, and Mr. Nickelberry retrieved the guns from Ms. Harris at a certain point before the shooting.
and so, I'll move on with my question, but, so that was, the conversation as for the one line you say your father had.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. The one line you say your father had with Mr. Nickelberry was in your presence, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was, were you standing closely as I am to the prosecutor's table, or was to Mr. Nickelberry, or were you standing about as close as you are to the court, court?
Mr. Nickelberry, got out the car, and he started walking towards, me and my father, and he said something to my father. My father told him,
Can you tell me what the father said?
okay, Mr. Nickelberry said something to my father.
Okay, but sir,
That's what I observed. This is what I observed. I observed Mr. Nickelberry say something to my father.
yes, but I'm asking you the distance away.
Mr.
Just
Jones,
between us?
there aren't any numbers in here for you to pick something, so can you estimate how far away distance wise?
Is Mr. Nickelberry?
Yes.
Maybe 3 feet. 3-4 feet.
And you're about 3 feet away when you say your father said something with to Mr. Nickelberry?
He said something in response to Mr. Nickelberry saying.
Okay. Now, after you indicate that you're done with your conversation with Mr. Nickelberry, you still don't go in your house, correct?
I'm at the bottom of my, I'm at the driveway to the left.
Yes, sir, but again, my question is, you still don't go in the house
When?
after your conversation with Mr. Nickelberry?
It was never no after. There's no after.
So are you saying that during your conversation, he was shooting?
No, he was there about, like I said, a minute and 40 seconds. Once he asked her for the guns, he began walking towards the porch, towards the guns. And as he's walking towards the porch, I'm inching my way to get to my house. It's a distance. So if he gets to these guns before I get to my house, he could potentially kill me.
Okay, but, so, again, even while he's walking away,
I'm headed towards the house.
sir, you have to let me finish my question. So while he's walking away,
He's
you
not
indicate,
walking away.
Mr. Jones, let the attorney ask the question. It's not what you perceived or happened, or what you thought or saw happen, just say.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as he's walking in one direction, you indicate you're inching in another direction.
Yes,
Okay. And at this point, you're in your driveway, correct?
yes,
And there's cars in the driveway?
yes.
And so are you on the side of the cars closest to your house, or are you on the side of the cars closest to Ms. Harris' house?
I'm behind the car. Towards my house.
Thank you. About how long after, will you consider the shooting did the police arrive?
Man. It seemed like forever, but, it seemed like a long time.
Was it about 10 minutes, 15, 20?
I couldn't tell you how long, but I was told that they got there in 2
Yes,
minutes.
and I was on, oh, sorry.
Mr. Jones, if you don't know, just say you don't.
I don't remember.
Okay, so did this occur in the daytime and the police arrived at night?
No, they arrived, shortly after.
Couple of questions.
Man.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Yes, and it's be very brief.
I just want to clarify, during cross subject of your father and having, being involved in some way. Did you observe your father threaten anyone that day?
No, ma'am.
Did you observe your father make any physical motions towards his weapon that day?
No, ma'am.
And just to clarify, as you said earlier, at any time did your father pull out his weapon?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and since we're on the subject of threats, did you threaten anyone?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Who were the only, who are the people you observed making threats that day?
Kirsten Harris and Roger Nickelberry.
Nothing further, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Jones, you can step down. Have to hallway and wait, or you are actually have to hallway.
Hello?
Count 10, felony firearm, count 11, felony firearm, count 12, felony firearm, count 13, felony firearm, count 14, felony firearm, count 15, felony firearm, count 16, felony firearm. The people also move to add count 17, assault with a dangerous weapon, felonious assault. Count 18, assault with dangerous weapon, felonious assault. Count 19, assault with a dangerous weapon, felonious assault. Count 19, assault with a dangerous weapon, felonious assault. Count 20, weapons, firearm, discharge in or at a building, dwelling. Count 21, additional charge of weapons, felony firearm. Count 22, felony firearm. Count 23, felony firearm. Count 24, felony firearm. Count 25, felony firearm, and count 26, felony firearm, to be added with the additional 4 counts that were just mentioned, and the additional 1 count of the firearm discharge, and we reserve argument. Thank you.
For Attorney Melissa, I just want to get the numbers right. And there are 16 counts right now.
Yes, please make sure I did it right.
You're asking to add 4 counts of FA, felonious assault, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
That takes you to 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you also want discharging in a building, that would be 21.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for that correction. Yes.
Okay, so then you want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counts of felony fire.
The plea actually,
5 counts.
5 counts. Thank you, Your Honor.
So I say that.
So it's still 26 counts, but I had to fix
Yes, thank you.
the numbers associated with the charge. Okay. Attorney Melissa,
Thank you, Judge. I think it's, well, even under a proper cause standard, and that met the burden with respect to the assault.
I'm sorry.
To murder.
Oh,
sorry.
Sorry,
Sure.
Can you please step to the microphone?
I said, sorry. Yeah, I asked the court not to bond over on the assault with intent to murder count as it relates to, at least Miss Caramanco, Danielle, the people who were allegedly in the property that had no contact with, my client whatsoever. It's important whether this is a specific intent crime. So even on a probable cause standard, there would have to be some showing up an intent as it relates to each of the persons in each of the counts. It would be the same argument for the DBH count as well, and the felony firearm count as well. I don't know if the prosecutor is adding this charge as it relates to my client, because she didn't say 1 or 2, so I'm assuming she meant both. My client never discharged any firearm, so I think people haven't met their burden as it relates to that particular count. And even the same argument would be for the felonious assault count. They're all of which are specific intent offenses. So there's no showing that my client is aware of who else is in this particular property. There's no conversation with these other individuals. The only individual that she had a conversation with allegedly is Mr. Benjamin Jones, not of Sean Aldridge, the Ty Caramanco, or Miss Aldridge. So for that reason, I have to put not to mount over. I think people haven't even on a proper cause standard demonstrated that all these other counts should be gone over because they lack specific intent and any connection there too.
Just little stuff, you know? Too many drinks. They like me more than they. Me more than
So, Your Honor, I would concur with Mr. Counsel, particularly the buying over for Ms. Aldridge, Danielle Aldridge, and for Ms. Kaya Karamanco. Very clear throughout the testimony on cross, direct, recross, redirect, that Ms. Danielle Aldridge and Ms. Karamanco were not outside. They were not part of the altercation. They were not part of the argument. They were not part of any of the facts or issues that were alleged that, there's nothing to indicate that they are witnesses, to what occurred or the shooting. There's no testimony that they were in harm's way or felt as if they were harm's way. There's no even testimony that they were outside of the home, in this particular case. So, Your Honor, when it comes to count 3, count 4, count 7, count 8, I believe what would also be count 11, count 12, count 15, count 16. I already said 3 and 4, there's quite a few, so I'm making sure I address all those needed. And the new sought count by people, is insufficient facts on the record to satisfy a burden for them. To even add them on a probable cause basis, regarding their specific intent, and there's no indication that there was any specific intent in regards to those individuals. It's not even a question of fact, because there's no facts placed upon the record regarding them, other than the fact that they were in the house. That was it. They were in the house. So for any assault with intent to commit murder and corresponding offenses, Your Honor, they have failed to show any specific intent to bring any type of bodily harm or threatened bodily harm to Ms. Caramonco or to Ms. Aldridge in this matter. So we are asking for the court to deny the bind over on those counts and deny the bind over on the additional counts, even if applied to Caramonco and Ms. Aldridge, and the corresponding felon firearm count. Thank
I respectfully disagree with defense here. Testimony from Mr. Jones was quite vivid as to what he observed with the other victims of his cases. His mother, Dale Aldridge, his father, Deshaun Aldridge, and his fiance, Aliyah Kamunko. People did not add charges for the children, but even the testimony indicated the children were even present. Now, defense indicates that there's no intent. I believe witnessing the father, and originally the testimony indicated that the mother and the fiance and the baby who was in the fiance's hands were in the doorway at one point in time while this was transpiring. And then he indicated that they went to the vestibule, at which he also indicated that he observed defendant number 1 to be shooting in that direction as well. He also indicated that he observed defendant 1, Nickelberry, to point one gun at him and one gun at his father and start to shoot. He also testified to his observations of what was going on and transpiring, not just what he was feeling, but what he was observing. His mother crying, grabbing onto him, he said, or being behind him. His fiance crying, his father and his friend crawling onto the floor. These are people, and this testimony shows just by his observation, just by their actions, that they were put in apprehension, in fear for their life, crying while a man was shooting inside their home at them, pointing at them, directly shooting, not with one gun, but with 2 guns. And speaking of the 2 guns that defendant number 2 willingly and very quickly, helpfully, gave them both to defendant number 1. She did not say, no, don't do that. She actually indicated prior to, according to testimony, she indicated, I'll get him to kill you. Testimony shows she got on the phone and voila, defendant number 1 appears. Can we prove that she talked to him? No, but this is a probable cause standard. He appeared, and once he appeared, he did not say what's going on here. He did not ask, hey, how you doing? Nothing of this nature. He came out and immediately started to engage with the victim, Benjamin Jones.
Benjamin Jones testified, even though his father is legally allowed to have a weapon, always has a weapon on him, he is a CPL holder. He did not pull out his weapon, nor did he observe him at any time to threaten anyone. He also indicated in his testimony that his father has never pulled out the gun, even though he carries it all the time, he's never pulled it out in front of the children. And as the testimony indicated, the children were present during this time. So it would be reasonable to believe that a CPL holder is not going to pull out a gun while bullets are flying, and he's going to crawl on the ground into the home and not engage further. So at this time, the people believe that all the counts should be bound over. Quite frankly, I think I should have added additional counts based on the testimony with the children and the friend's neighbor there. However, I believe that not just for probable cause, but these are standards that will uphold over across the street at circuit court, based on this testimony. And the fact that he was able to, again, he indicated his children have what seems to be PTSD, jumping, the rest of his family, they're still suffering. Now, do we not give him a win because these people were fortunate enough to crawl on the ground, to bottom weave, to get into their homes, hide the bullets that came into their homes, didn't hit them? That the intent was to hit them. His actions alone shows his intent. Defendant number 2's actions alone show her intent. She literally told him, I will get him to kill you. And then without hesitation handed him not one, but 2 guns to make sure he got the job done. And you don't need 2 guns to shoot one person, but it'd be helpful if you're going to shoot an entire family, which the testimony indicates he did. Once he did that, he wasn't done. He then shot up the house a second time, a couple minutes. Well, I don't know the exact time. We had some time issues here, but let's say a minute or 2 later, after a pause, maybe he was reloading, who knows? But he started to unload on the house again, shooting again. This time he doesn't have one person. He knows how many people are in the house. He knows. Defense even told us how long they've been living there, residing there. He knows very well who's there. He came, he saw the father, he saw the other people. He's well aware. And this does not lower or let defendant Harris off the hook. Her intentions were very clear, and she got what she said she wanted, and she gave him the 2 guns, and they attempted to, together with their actions, kill Mr. Jones, his mother, his father, his fiance. He's very lucky he didn't hit the children or the neighbors at this time. So we believe that all counts should be bound over, including the additional counts. Again, testimony has shown that the felonious assault should easily be bound over based on the testimony and what was observed and how they reacted. And then with that being said, the fact that it's a gun, great bodily harm is when you're shooting at someone, not once, but multiple times. And when you miss, or don't know if you missed, but you try again the second time, it's very obvious what the intent was. And at no point in time did the second defendant try to stop him. She promoted it the entire time and willingly aided and helped him in all of these counts. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, the court heard testimony from Mr. Benjamin Jones today. I won't cite all of the facts for you all, but you just heard. There was an altercation between Mr. Jones and Ms. Kirsten Harris, and testimony that Ms. Harris threatened to have her boyfriend kill him shortly after Mr. Nickelberry showed up. And as Mr. Jones described it, Mr. Nickelberry said something to, or had a discussion with Mr. Jones, and Mr. Jones was discussing how the gunshots in the neighborhood, he wanted to get a problem with that. And then Mr. Nickelberry stated he wanted to see some shooting and told Ms. Harris to go get the guns. Testimony further showed that the defendant too, Mr. Harris, handed Mr. Nickelberry a gun, a 9mm and a revolver door, and that Mr. Nickelberry pointed the gun at the complaining witness, Mr. Jones, who testified, and father, Mr. I believe it's Deshaun Aldridge, and that Mr. Jones' fiance and mom, which would be Kaya Karamoko and Danielle Aldridge, were in the doorway at the time. And that Mr. Jones was shocked and afraid for his life. And before he get to his house as he retreated, defendant one started shooting. And at that time, he stated that once again, he was shooting the defendant one, Nickelberry was shooting at the complaining witness, the first one, Mr. Jones, and the dad, as well as the side of the home and the vestibule with the fiance and the mom, Miss Kiramoko and Miss Danielle Aldridge in the doorway. And he said he thought that he was gonna lose his life, and that there were about 12 to 15 shots being fired. And after the 12 to 15 shots, Miss Harris left in a black Impala, and the shot stopped for about a minute, and there are more shots from Mr. Nickelberry. And that Mr. Jones saw defendant one in a car shooting at the house, and about 2 or 3 shots at that time. And while there were no physical injuries, except for Mr. Jones saying that he had a shoulder injury from falling to the floor, he spoke to his children suffering from seizures, or having seizures, I should say. And every time that they hear doors close or gunshots, actually that's not relevant because they're not complaining witnesses at this time, but that fiance, Miss Kaya Karamoko, suffers from anxiety. So for Mr. Nickelberry, we'll start with that because Ms. Harris's case is based off the aiding and abetting theory.
Jealous of his.
Mr. Jones' testimony, he was able to identify Mr. Nickelberry and state that he had 2 guns in his hand that were provided by Ms. Harris. That he shot 12, 15 times in his home, and that his father, Sean Aldridge, was on the porch, and that his fiance Kaya Karamoko and his mother Danielle Aldridge were in the door. And this
Hit the ground.
Hello. We believe that the people met their burden of proof to show that there was intent to kill. And I know the defense counsel mentioned that Ms. Karamoko, Kaya Karamoko, and Ms. Danielle Aldridge, those 2 counts should be dismissed. However, the relevant testimony is that they were standing in the doorway and they were not hiding in the house. They were visible at the doorway for Mr. Nickelberry to see. So it can be inferred that intent to kill the 2 individuals in the doorway. There was intent to kill them as well. So with that, the next question is whether or not Ms. Harris should be bound over based off of the aiding and abetting theory. And just to read the elements off from the charge. First, that the alleged crime was actually committed either by the defendant, which it has been, or at the probable cause matter. Second, that before or during the crime, the defendant did something to assist in the commission of the crime. In this case, Ms. Harris provided the 2 weapons, the 2 handguns for Mr. Nickelberry. And third, most important, that at the time that the defendant must have intended the commission of the crime, alleged, or must have known that the other person intended his commission, or that the crime alleged was a natural and probable consequence of the commission of the crime intended. And there's testimony from Mr. Jones here that Ms. Harris stated in the very beginning that she was going to have her boyfriend kill him. So I think that the intent was very clear and that she knew of the intent and aided in that intent by providing the gun. So with that, I'm going to bind both defendants over. And as far as there are additional counts, 17, 18, 19, 20, those are all for felonious assault. The burden is met for felonious assault on these counts. as well as discharging of a building. This, Paris, do you have the PAC code for discharging of a
Yes.
building with felony?
The discharge of the building is MCL 750.234 B as in boy.
Thank you. And then the following felony firearm charges attached to that be 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. The 5 felony firearms for the 4 felonious assault and the 1 discharging of the building with felony.
So, Your Honor, if I may, and I don't want to cut you off, but I just don't want to forget, people would like to address the bond on defendant number 2, Kirsten Harris. I did look it up. There might be some, the information I'm seeing here doesn't make sense, so, so I would like to,
So I
address
can tell
bond based on. the
You want to
testimony.
address bond and correct what happened at the bond determination hearing, or you want to address it today?
Whatever the correct procedure is, Your Honor, I just didn't want to do it after the fact and it no longer be in your.
Go ahead.
Based on the testimony, Your Honor, that has come to light today, the people believe that a personal bond in the tether is not reasonable in this case for defendant number 2. I would ask that the bond be increased, and to not, that is one thing I would like to ask. Our ROA is showing that the bond was $750,000. It does not show what it was at bond redetermination lower 2. We believe that the original bond that it was set at should be reinstated based on the information that has been provided.
Attorney Lewis, I do have anything.
I thought this quarter actually reduced the bond. It was a cash bond, it was posted. She's on tether, she's present, she returned to work at Fort Motor Company. There's no reason why she's not going to appear. She certainly doesn't have a previous history of doing it severely. Defending against the charges that I support, but that the bond remains the same. Oh, my goodness, I keep forgetting. It's okay. I ain't saying nothing before.
I do have a question on what you said, if you could
Let me just
clarify.
clarify. Attorney Lewis, is it correct that you're requesting the bond remain the same?
Yes, Your Honor, because this court is the court that reviewed the bond. This court is aware she's on tether. It was a cash bond and it was posted. A client returned to work at Fort Motor Company. She has no habeas history. There's no reason to believe that she won't return. They don't even live, she doesn't live on that street at all and have no contact with this, these individuals and doesn't want to. So she'll be at court when she's supposed to be here like she was today.
So my only question is, has there been any contact
No,
that we know of, or that the prosecutor knows of from Ms. Harris with any of the complaining witnesses?
No,
Or
Your-
just their interference?
No, Your Honor, but the fact that the severity of these charges, the information that came to light in the testimony of Ms. Harris's actions, her threats, she is well aware of where this entire family resides. As they indicated, they're still in fear. So based on that information, the severity of the charges, the community safety of the victims, multiple victims in this case, we just do not believe, and I apologize, I was given wrong information, but I'm getting the correct information now as far as what that cash bond was.
I can tell you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So there was a bond redetermination hearing in which Attorney Woodside requested the bond to be reduced, and it was on January 5th, January 11th. It was reduced to 250,000, 10% with a GPS tether confined to home other than for work or anything pertaining to her children. And think that there are no complaints, nothing has happened, no communication. Ms. Harris has not lived at that location anymore, which is the most very important factor. And as testimony has come out, probable cause standard, she was not the one who fired gunshots. Although she did provide the weapons, based on testimony, I am not going to adjust bond. Ms. Harris, I think she understands the severity of this case now and also aiding and abetting theory and what that means. And I am going to continue bond entry.
And that's no contact with all victims.
And I will update that also. It's no contact, Ms. Harris. No no contact with any of the complaining witnesses.
He doesn't.
But you can still have contact. So I'm saying no contact, meaning no social media, no text message, no telling someone else to say something, no communication whatsoever. Okay? I need to hear you acknowledge that.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Thank you.
I didn't buy them over on the record yet.
What?
I didn't buy them over.
And that's my fault, Your Honor. I interrupted.
That was my fault.
Disregard.
I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
I did too.
We all did. We all walked away like, have a good
I
night.
had you over in the car.
Huh?
I'm glad you all still doing it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're adding like 7 more judges.
That was my fault. I just apologize. Have you come back? Okay, we are back on the record on People of State of Michigan versus Roger Dingleberry III and Ms. Kirsten Harris, case 2260989. Bond was addressed, however, I did not actually bind over both defendants. So at this time, I'm binding both defendants over. Since Mr. Dingleberry is in custody, the arraignment on the information will be February 13th at 9 o'clock at Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. And now that concludes today's.
Thank you. I thought you did it already.
I think we all did.
You know,